It was Christmas Eve. The city was alive with lights that shimmered like 1,000 tiny stars scattered across streets, windows, and rooftops. The air was crisp, carrying the soft scent of pine trees, roasted chestnuts, and the faint echo of Christmas songs playing from passing cars. Snowflakes drifted lazily from the sky, melting on the warm hoods of vehicles and the faces of hurried shoppers clutching their last-minute gifts. Michael sat behind the wheel of his car, the heater humming softly. His breath fogged the window slightly as he waited for the light to change. On the passenger seat beside him lay a few wrapped boxes, one covered in pink paper with white stars, another in red with a shiny golden bow. They were gifts for his little daughter, Emma. His world, his reason for everything. He smiled faintly thinking about her, how her eyes would light up when she tore into the presents, how she'd squeal with joy at the new dollhouse he had saved for months to buy. For a brief moment, he felt peace, the kind of warmth that came not from the car's heater, but from the thought of giving, of love, of family. But then the red light caught him at the next intersection. And that's when he saw them. A young woman stood near the corner of the street, her figure wrapped in a worn-out coat that barely covered her knees. Her face was pale, her hair tangled under a woolen hat that looked too small. Beside her stood two children, twins, maybe 5 or 6 years old, dressed in mismatched clothes, their small hands clutching each other as the wind cut through the air. They were holding a cardboard sign. The writing was simple, uneven, drawn with a black marker that had begun to fade. Hungry. Please help. For a moment, the world outside seemed to slow down. The sound of car horns, Christmas music, laughter from a group of teenagers crossing the street, all faded into silence. Michael's eyes locked on the twins. Their cheeks were red from the cold, their lips trembling as they tried to stay still. One of them, the boy, had a small tear rolling down his cheek. The girl leaned against her mother, whispering something he couldn't hear. The sight pierced through Michael like a knife. He had seen poverty before, yes. He'd passed by people asking for change, sitting beside convenience stores, or under bridges. But tonight, something was different. Maybe it was the way the children looked at the cars passing by, not with desperation, but with hope, like maybe someone, anyone, would notice them. The light turned green. Cars started moving again, honking impatiently at those who lingered even for a second. Michael gripped the steering wheel tighter. His foot hovered over the accelerator. He told himself to drive. He was almost home, his daughter was waiting, dinner was getting cold. But he couldn't. Instead, he put the car in park. He sat there for a few seconds, just watching them. The mother bent down, brushing snow from her children's hair, trying to smile at them even as her lips quivered. She had that kind of quiet strength, the kind only a mother could have, the kind that hides fear behind a smile. Michael's heart pounded. Memories started to flood his mind, nights when he too had felt lost, when he had no one but his daughter to hold on to. His wife had passed away 2 years ago. Since then, it had just been the two of them, surviving, healing, learning to smile again. He remembered nights when he skipped dinner so his little girl could eat more. He remembered the long hours driving deliveries, fighting exhaustion, praying things would get better. And now, here was another parent, standing in the cold, doing the same, just trying to protect her kids. He couldn't ignore it, not tonight, not on Christmas Eve. Michael turned off the car engine and stepped out. The cold air hit him instantly, biting at his cheeks. His boots crunched on the thin layer of snow as he walked toward them. The twins looked up, their eyes wide. The mother straightened up, wary at first, clutching the cardboard sign tighter. "Hey," Michael said softly, trying to sound gentle. "You okay?" The woman hesitated. Her voice was quiet, almost trembling. "We're fine, sir. Just trying to get something to eat. It's been a rough week." Michael glanced at the twins again. The boy was holding a small plastic car with a missing wheel. The girl had a little stuffed bear that looked like it had seen better days. They both stared at him, not asking, not begging, just looking. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a few bills. "Here," he said, handing them to the woman. "It's not much, but maybe it'll help." She stared at the money, her eyes filling with tears. Thank you so much. You don't know how much this means." Michael nodded. "You have somewhere to stay tonight?" She hesitated. "A shelter nearby, but they're full most nights. I'm hoping we can find a spot later." The snow started falling heavier now, the wind carrying small flurries that danced in the streetlights. Michael looked at the kids again. They were shivering. He couldn't just leave them here. His mind raced. He didn't know them, didn't know their story. But something inside him whispered, if not you, then who? He took a deep breath. Look, he said, I know this might sound strange, but I live just a few blocks away. I've got food, heat, and space. You're welcome to come, at least to warm up and eat something. The woman's eyes widened. I don't know if that's okay. You don't even know us. Michael smiled softly. I know enough. It's Christmas. No one should be freezing tonight. For a moment, she just looked at him, searching his face for any hint of danger or pity. But all she saw was sincerity. She looked at her kids, then back at him. Okay, she whispered. Thank you so much. Michael led them to his car. He opened the back door, and the twins climbed in, their little bodies instantly leaning toward the heater vents. The girl giggled softly as the warm air touched her face. It was the first sound of joy he'd heard from them. As they drove through the quiet streets, Michael glanced at them through the rearview mirror. The mother, her name was Emily, he soon learned, sat quietly, her hands resting on her lap, eyes glistening with silent gratitude. The twins, Tommy and Lily, looked out the window in awe at the glowing lights and decorations, whispering to each other about Santa and presents. Michael smiled. You two like Christmas lights? Lily nodded eagerly. They look like stars that came down to play. He chuckled softly. That's a beautiful way to put it. When they reached his apartment, he helped them inside. The warmth of the home wrapped around them like a blanket. The smell of cinnamon and baked cookies filled the air. Emma had been baking earlier. Michael called out, Emma, we've got some guests tonight. The little girl ran out from her room, wearing her Christmas pajamas and a Santa hat too big for her head. Her eyes sparkled when she saw the twins. Hi, I'm Emma, she said, grinning. The twins smiled shyly. I'm Lily, said the girl. And that's my brother, Tommy. Within minutes, the three of them were sitting on the rug, playing with Emma's toys while the adults warmed up in the kitchen. Emily couldn't stop thanking Michael. She said she'd been looking for work, sleeping in her car after losing her job when the local clinic shut down. Her husband had left months ago. She had nowhere else to go. Michael listened, his heart heavy but full of empathy. He didn't see a stranger anymore. He saw someone fighting the same battle he once fought, to keep hope alive. As the night went on, laughter filled the apartment. The kids shared cookies, watched the twinkling tree, and for a while, the world outside, the cold, the hunger, the pain, disappeared. Michael watched them from the couch, a quiet smile on his face. He glanced at Emily, who sat beside him, tears glimmering in her eyes as she watched her children laugh for the first time in weeks. Outside, snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in white, a reminder that even in the coldest nights, warmth could still be found in the kindness of a stranger. And in that small apartment, on that Christmas Eve, something extraordinary began, not just an act of charity, but the start of healing, of hope, and of a bond that would change their lives forever. He brought them to his small apartment, the kind of place that felt alive even in silence. The smell of baked cookies lingered in the air, and the dim glow of the Christmas tree filled the living room with soft light. The twins stood near the doorway, their eyes wide, looking around as if they had stepped into another world. Emily followed behind them, still unsure if she should have come, but the warmth of the room melted her hesitation. Michael walked to the kitchen, set his keys on the counter, and turned back with a gentle smile. Make yourselves comfortable, he said. I'll get some food going. He opened the fridge and took out a few things, leftover pasta, some bread, and a pot of soup. He moved quietly, his hands steady, but his mind racing. It had been years since someone else had sat at that table besides him and Emma. Tonight, though, the silence was replaced with small whispers, soft laughter, and the sound of little feet on the carpet. Emma came running in from her room, her Santa hat still slipping over one eye. She stopped when she saw the twins sitting on the couch, their coats still on. Daddy, she said curiously, who are they? Michael crouched beside her. This is Emily, and these are her kids, Tommy and Lily. They needed a warm place to stay tonight. Emma looked at them, then smiled without hesitation. Hi, you can play with my toys if you want. Her kindness was effortless, natural. She ran to her room and came back with a box of stuffed animals, placing them on the floor. The twins looked at her, then at their mom. Emily nodded softly, and they joined Emma, giggling quietly as they picked out the softest ones. As Michael served the food, Emily sat down at the table. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the spoon. I don't know how to thank you, she said, her voice quiet. "We haven't had a proper meal in 2 days." Michael smiled faintly. "You don't need to thank me. I've been there." He didn't explain further, but his eyes told a story she understood immediately, one of loss, struggle, and quiet resilience. They ate in silence for a while, the only sounds were the clinking of spoons and the crackle of the small heater in the corner. The twins finished their soup quickly, and Emma offered them cookies she had baked earlier. When Tommy reached for one, his eyes lit up. "This is the best cookie ever," he said with a full mouth, and everyone laughed softly. For the first time that night, Emily smiled. It was a tired smile, fragile yet real. Her eyes glistened as she watched her kids eat without worry. Michael noticed and felt something shift inside him, not pity, not obligation, but understanding. He knew what it meant to fight for your children, to hold on to hope when there was almost nothing left. After dinner, Michael showed them the guest room. "It's not much," he said, "but it's warm. The kids can sleep here, and there's a blanket for you too." Emily nodded. "You're doing too much already. We can sleep on the floor if it's easier." Michael shook his head. "No one sleeps on the floor in my house. Not tonight." The twins jumped on the bed, laughing, their little faces bright with joy. They had forgotten the cold, the hunger, the fear. For them, this was magic, a safe place, a warm room, and the sound of laughter returning. Emily stood in the doorway, watching them. "They haven't laughed like this in weeks," she said softly. "I almost forgot what it sounds like." Michael leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Kids are stronger than we think. They just need a little light to find their way back." She turned to him, her voice barely a whisper. "Why did you stop for us? You didn't have to." He paused for a moment, looking at the flickering Christmas lights. "A few years ago, someone did. The same for me, I guess. I'm just paying it forward." The room went quiet again. Outside, the snow kept falling, wrapping the city in white. The clock ticked softly, marking the slow, peaceful rhythm of the night. When it was time for the kids to sleep, Emma insisted on giving Lily her favorite teddy bear. "You can keep it until Santa brings you one," she said. Lily hugged her, whispering, "Thank you." Michael tucked Emma into bed afterward. She looked up at him with sleepy eyes. "Daddy, are they staying forever?" He smiled. "Just for tonight, sweetheart. They needed a little help." Emma nodded, yawning. "You always help people. Mommy would be proud." Her words hit him deep. He brushed her hair back gently and kissed her forehead. "Good night, my love." When he returned to the living room, Emily was sitting quietly by the window, staring at the falling snow. "They're asleep," she said softly. "I can't remember the last time they slept this peacefully." Michael sat on the couch across from her. "You should rest too." She hesitated. "It's strange," she said after a pause. "I don't even know you, and yet, this feels safe." He smiled faintly. "Sometimes, you don't need to know someone to trust them. You just feel it." Emily looked at him for a long moment, her eyes full of gratitude. "You've given us more than food or warmth tonight. You've given us a little hope again." Michael looked toward the small Christmas tree, its lights reflecting off the window. "Hope's what keeps us going," he said quietly. "Especially on nights like this." The room fell into a comfortable silence. The heater hummed softly, the lights twinkled, and outside the world was calm. For the first time in a long time, Michael didn't feel alone. In another room, 3 children slept soundly, their dreams filled with warmth instead of hunger. And somewhere between exhaustion and peace, Emily closed her eyes too, whispering a silent prayer of thanks for the stranger who had stopped at a red light and changed their night, maybe even their lives, forever. He woke up early the next morning, the soft glow of dawn spreading through the thin curtains. The apartment was quiet except for the gentle breathing of the children sleeping in the next room. Michael moved quietly, careful not to wake them, as he started the coffee machine and looked around the living room. The empty bowls, cookie crumbs, and a few toys scattered across the floor told the story of a night that had meant more than he could put into words. He glanced toward the small guest room. The door was half open. Inside, the twins were curled up together under the blanket, their faces calm, safe, peaceful. Emily was sitting on the edge of the bed, her hair loose, her eyes tired but soft. She looked up and smiled when she saw him standing there. "Morning," she whispered. "Morning," he replied quietly. "Coffee's ready if you want some." She nodded, getting up carefully so she wouldn't wake the kids. They sat at the kitchen table, 2 strangers bound by the kind of silence that only people who have both been through hardship can share. Steam rose from their cups. "Thank you," she said after a long pause. For last night, I still can't believe any of it happened. Michael shrugged lightly. I just did what anyone should do. She looked at him for a moment, her eyes filled with a kind of sadness that had no words. Not everyone would stop. Most people just drive by. He didn't answer right away. He looked down at his hands. I used to drive by too, he said softly. Until one day, someone stopped for me. Her expression changed slightly, curious but respectful. She didn't ask for details, but he continued anyway. When my wife died, everything fell apart. I didn't know how to raise a child alone. There were nights I didn't know what we'd eat, days when I thought about giving up. But someone, an old man I barely knew, helped me through. Said I'd get back on my feet if I just kept going. He was right. Emily nodded, her voice quiet. You did, he smiled faintly. Took time, still does, but you learned to find light again. They sat in silence for a while, both lost in thought. Then, the sound of tiny footsteps interrupted them. The twins appeared in the doorway, rubbing their eyes, followed by Emma, still in her pajamas. Merry Christmas, Emma said sleepily, grinning. Lily and Tommy gasped. It's Christmas. Michael chuckled. Yeah, it is. You kids hungry? They all nodded eagerly, and soon the apartment filled with the smell of pancakes and hot chocolate. The children sat around the table, laughing and talking like they'd known each other forever. Emma showed them her presents, insisting they open one each. Michael tried to stop her, but she looked up with that determined spark in her eyes that reminded him so much of her mother. Santa would want me to share, she said. The twins tore open the wrapping paper carefully, as if afraid they might be dreaming. Inside, they found a small toy car and a doll. Their smiles lit up the room. Emily's eyes filled with tears as she watched them. They've never had Christmas gifts, she whispered. Michael leaned back, taking in the sight. Guess it's a good year to start. After breakfast, the kids played by the tree, their laughter echoing through the small apartment. Emily stood by the window, watching the snow fall outside, her hand resting on the glass. I used to love snow, she said quietly. Before it started meaning cold nights and empty stomachs. Michael joined her, his voice soft. Maybe now it can mean something else again. She turned to him, smiling faintly. You really believe things can change, don't you? I have to, he said. Otherwise, what's the point of all this? He gestured around. The lights, the food, the warmth. Christmas isn't about having everything. It's about remembering we're not alone. She looked at him for a long time, her eyes glistening. You've given us that. I wish I could repay you somehow. He shook his head. You don't need to. Just promise me one thing. When you get the chance, help someone else the way you wish someone would have helped you. Her eyes softened. I promise. The hours passed like minutes. The apartment felt alive again, filled with the kind of joy that comes not from gifts or decorations, but from human connection. The twins and Emma built a fort out of blankets, pretending it was Santa's workshop. Their laughter carried from one room to another, warming every corner. Emily helped Michael clean up, the two of them working side by side, their movements in quiet sync. There was no awkwardness anymore, no sense of being strangers, only the simple rhythm of two people who understood each other without needing to say much. At one point, Michael noticed Emily pause, her hand still on a plate. She was staring at the kids again. They look happy, he said softly. She nodded, blinking back tears. I almost forgot what that looked like. He reached for a towel, drying his hands. Happiness has a way of finding its way back. Sometimes it just needs a little help. As the afternoon sunlight streamed through the window, something shifted inside both of them. It wasn't love, not yet, it was something gentler, deeper, like two broken pieces finally finding a place to rest. Later that evening, as they all sat together watching the snow fall outside, Tommy climbed onto Michael's lap. Mr. Michael, he said quietly, thank you for saving us. Michael smiled and ruffled his hair. You saved me too, buddy. The boy tilted his head, confused. How? Michael looked toward the window where the city lights shimmered in the distance. Because sometimes when you help someone, you remember that there's still good left in the world. You reminded me of that. The boy nodded sleepily, resting his head against his chest. Emily watched from across the room, her heart heavy and full all at once. For the first time in months, she didn't feel afraid of tomorrow. The night ended with the children asleep in a tangle of blankets and dreams. Emily stood by the doorway before going to bed. Good night, Michael, she said softly. He looked up from the couch, smiling. Good night, Emily. She hesitated. You've given us something I didn't think we'd find again, peace. Michael looked at her with tired eyes and a warm smile. You don't owe me anything. Just promise you'll never lose that hope again. She nodded slowly. I won't. As she disappeared into the hallway, Michael leaned back, staring at the Christmas tree lights twinkling in the dim room. He thought about his wife, about how proud she would be of him tonight. He thought about the twins and Emily, about how life had an unexpected way of bringing the right people together at the right time. The snow outside fell thicker now, muffling the sounds of the city. It felt like the whole world was asleep, resting in the calm after the storm. Michael closed his eyes, letting the peace of the moment sink in. For the first time in a long time, his home felt full, not just of people, but of life, warmth, and the quiet truth that kindness could rebuild even the most broken hearts. The next morning, sunlight filtered softly through the curtains, casting long, golden beams across the living room. Michael sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a warm mug, staring at the quiet apartment. The twins were asleep in the guest room, tangled in blankets, and Emma was still curled up in her bed, her small chest rising and falling in the soft rhythm of slumber. Emily was in the corner, quietly tidying dishes from the night before, her movements careful and graceful. There was a serenity in the air that felt fragile, like it could vanish at any moment, but Michael didn't mind. He wanted to savor it. He had made up his mind. The events of the last few days had shifted something deep inside him. Life had a way of testing people, of placing them in the cold and dark, but sometimes, just sometimes, it gave you a chance to change someone's path, and maybe your own along the way. He had seen the fear and hope in Emily's eyes, the quiet resilience of her children, and he knew he couldn't turn away. Michael cleared his throat, breaking the quiet. Emily, she looked up, her hair slightly disheveled, soft strands falling around her face. Yes, he took a deep breath. I want to help. You and the kids, you can stay here for as long as you need. And I want to help you get back on your feet. There's a clinic where I work, they're short on staff. I can talk to them. You could start next week. Her eyes widened. She blinked quickly, holding back tears. You would do that. Of course, he said. You're talented, you're good with people, and you've got the kind of strength that can't be taught. All you need is a chance. I'll give you that. Emily swallowed hard, her lips trembling. She looked toward the twins, sleeping peacefully through the closed door. Her chest rose and fell as if she was trying to hold back the tide of emotion. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Michael smiled softly. Don't say anything, just let me do it. She nodded, finally allowing a small, fragile smile to form. Thank you. The twins woke shortly after, rubbing their eyes and stretching, yawning in unison. Good morning, Emma chirped, bouncing out of her room in oversized pajamas. She ran to the twins and immediately took their hands, holding them tightly. You stayed here. That's awesome. Tommy and Lily smiled sleepily, clutching each other as they took in the familiar warmth of the apartment. It's nice here, Lily said softly, glancing up at Emily. Warm and safe. Michael watched them, his heart swelling. It's just the beginning, he said quietly. We're going to figure things out together. By mid-morning, Michael had already called the clinic. After a brief conversation with the manager, he secured Emily a position, part-time for now, with flexible hours and the potential to grow. She was to start next week, giving her enough time to settle in. When he relayed the news, Emily's face lit up like the sun breaking through clouds. The tears she had held back finally spilled over, and she hugged him instinctively, feeling the overwhelming gratitude she could never quite put into words. That's incredible, she said, holding onto him tightly. You've given me hope again, for the first time in so long. Michael nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. You didn't need me to do it. You just needed someone to believe in you. Outside, snowflakes began to fall, dusting the city in pristine white. The world seemed calm, the kind of stillness that only mornings like this could hold. He looked out the window at the soft glow of Christmas lights still lingering from the night before, blinking gently as though they, too, were celebrating the small miracles happening inside the apartment. The day unfolded with quiet joy. Michael helped Emily organize the small guest room, giving the twins new bedding and clearing space for their clothes. Emma supervised, eager to play hostess, showing them how to arrange toys and hang their little stockings on the mantel. Laughter echoed through the apartment for the first time in what felt like forever, unburdened by fear or worry. By afternoon, Emily decided to take the children outside for a brief walk. The snow had thickened, and the city streets glittered under a soft winter sun. Michael watched them from the window, smiling faintly. Seeing her with the children, relaxed and free, was a relief. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was beginning to live. Michael spent the afternoon tidying the apartment, the quiet hum of the heater and the distant city sounds making the hours feel almost sacred. When Emily returned, the children dragging little sleds and laughing at the snow clinging to their mittens, he felt a profound sense of peace. They were safe, warm, and together. As night fell, he prepared dinner while Emily bathed the twins. The smell of roasted vegetables and bread filled the small kitchen. Emma helped him set the table, her energy boundless, insisting on arranging the silverware, just like at a restaurant. Michael couldn't help but laugh, shaking his head at her determination. After dinner, the 4 children sat cross-legged on the living room rug, recounting stories from the day. Emily watched them, a quiet smile on her face, while Michael poured himself a cup of tea and settled into the couch, watching. He realized that this simple domestic scene, food, warmth, laughter, was something he had missed more than he knew. Later, when the children were asleep, Emily joined him on the couch. The apartment was quiet, except for the soft hum of the heater and the faint ticking of a wall clock. She leaned back, resting her head slightly against his shoulder. "You've done more than just help us," she said softly. "You've given us a chance to believe again. I don't know how to ever repay you." Michael took a slow sip of his tea. "You don't need to repay me. Just live your life. Show them the kind of strength you've always had. That's enough for me." Her eyes glistened with tears. "I never thought anyone could see us, really see us, and care. Especially not someone we barely know." He shrugged lightly. "Sometimes, people come into your life at the right time, and you don't realize it until later. That's all it is." She leaned back, closing her eyes for a moment, breathing in the warmth of the apartment, the quiet safety of the night, and the comfort of being believed in. "It feels like a miracle," she whispered. Michael didn't answer. He simply watched her, the faint flicker of the Christmas tree reflecting in her eyes. Somewhere deep down, he realized the truth of what he had learned over the past days, that miracles weren't always wrapped in shiny paper or tied with bows. Sometimes, they were found in acts of kindness, in hearts willing to help, and in moments when people chose to believe